it to Gabriel Ferreira, number 7, who's making a run. There's nobody in front of him. Oh, man.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the NBP, the No Beaters podcast. My name is Gabe, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Bryan and Nate as always, and we're back for another episode of the podcast. And boys, do we ever have quite the material dump, as Bryan said before the airing of the podcast? Lots to talk about, so we'll get right into it. First up is going to be with the IQA. So the IQA finally announced, this was on the 13th of January, the winners for the Pan American Games, the host of the Pan American Games. So that's on their website. Just reading the article here. And the winner is going to be Lima, Peru, which is awesome, super exciting. And the event currently tentatively set for July 8th and 10th of this year. So boys, what do you think? Peru, Destination Peru.
Destination Peru. I don't know how I was kind of in between like what I wanted, because I was like, oh, Brazil, that sounds like a fun time. But I'm like, realistically, Peru is sick. If I decide to spend a couple, if I make it, I gotta calm myself here. If I make it and I am able to attend, like spending some extra days out in Peru, like phenomenal. 2, from the tactical side, I want to see teams have to deal with the altitude, because that is going to be brutal. I believe Lima's a little bit farther up from the ocean, but yeah, I think that's going to be a fun weekend. I'm super glad they actually gave us a date to start with, because usually they're like, here, take your little niblet of here's where we're going to play. Now wait another month and we'll tell you when. But I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm reading the article, though. They didn't specify exactly where it is, though, in Lima, Peru, right?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was just an announcement about the location and then just thanking the other bids. But yeah, I don't think they've officially announced where in Peru. Well, like those stadium, essentially, or fields.
Do we know like which teams are involved besides like USA, Canada, Mexico? Assuming like from last Pan Am tournament.
I'm gonna guess Peru.
Oh yeah. Besides Peru, but, like.
Yeah, I don't know either. Like I think other than like the top, like you said, like Canada, US. I don't know if Canada is gonna do like the whole split again, like they did the last Pan Ams. I'm assuming Peru as well. Maybe Brazil. Maybe that's why they made a bid. Who knows? But
Brazil makes sense.
It would seem like odd to me if it's just like Canada, US, Mexico, in Peru. And of course, Peru would be a part of it. But I feel like to bring it that far south, I feel like there'd be more teams like in the area also participating.
Were there any other countries in South America that went to World Cup?
So that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm on the IQA Wikipedia page, and I'm looking through what NBPs, like, NGBs, non-governing body, or national governing bodies, are there. So as far as I see, Argentina exists.
Yeah.
I see US, Canada, Mexico, Peru, I believe, is somewhere in the. I think they're in the associate members right now. Brazil's an associate member. Chile's an associate member. Yep, Peru, like I said. The one that did pop into my mind is I wonder if Australia is eligible.
Okay.
I don't know if that's technically possible. New Zealand as well, but yeah, as far as I see, the last time Wikipedia was updated for the IQA, it's Chile, Argentina, Peru, Brazil, for the 4 down south, and then Canada, USA, Mexico. So we're probably looking at a 6-team tournament, I would assume, maybe plus or minus 1.
But on their website, it mentions that the event will welcome national and regional teams from all of North and South America to compete and earn the champion title. So I assume that there's going to be like a good amount of countries in both of those continents.
Unfortunately, maybe no Australia for me.
Probably not.
I wanted to see Australia play against USA. That was my big interest there. 'Cause it's been a couple.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the World Cup. So like the only South American team that I see is Brazil. That was at the Italian World Cup. That doesn't mean that other, like you said, other NGBs don't exist. But if we're just basing off the World Cup, which I think is kind of harsh to do, but based on who attended the World Cup, the only South American team here is Brazil. But who knows? We'll see. Like I said, I'd be really interested to see if we actually could get more than just the standard like Canada, US, Mexico. But
well, with a lot closer, like I was thinking about this the other day, and I wonder if there's like some sort of correlation that you can pick up, like for every extra hour or extra 2 hours you travel, like you lose like a person when you're like going to a tournament. And it's like, oh, if your tournament's like 10 hours away, you're gonna lose like 8 people from a 21-man roster or something, right? I wonder if like, hey, for every extra hour plane ride, you have one less person eligible. Going from Brazil to Italy is one thing, but like they had a pretty small team as far as I'm aware. But like the other ones, now that instead of you're traveling across from the southwest to Europe, you're going like across the Atlantic and over the equator. Maybe it's more realistic, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, it'll be exciting.
Also, I just want to say they also confirmed Limerick, Ireland is official now, which it more or less was before.
Yeah, I know that's also in the article as well. So Limerick, Ireland will be hosting the European games for somewhere. And I don't know if we have any European listeners, but it's pretty exciting. And those games will be held July 22nd to 24th. And I guess we'll also shout out some of the other bids as well. So the IQA wants to put in the article here. They want to thank Brazil, so specifically Sao Paulo, Catalonia, and then Mexico had 2 bids. I'm not going to really botch those names, but it's in the article here. And then Peru also had a second bid as well for the Pan American Games. So thanks so much for those bids as well, because obviously we wouldn't have a bid process if we didn't have countries just putting in bids. So it's thanks so much for doing that, I guess, on behalf of the IQA. But yeah, it should be a really exciting event. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we're able to have it still happen. But yeah, we're looking forward to that. And are there any updates that you know, Bryan, from Team Canada in terms of roster updates or no? I didn't see anything, but
no.
Okay.
As far as I can, I guess, say, but it's not really anything important. Team Canada policy is 6 months before the event, they will notify athletes. So I think at that point, that's maybe sometime around now and near future, probably, if I'm doing my math right. But it hasn't, as far as I'm aware at the time of this recording, nothing has happened. But yeah, we'll see. Now that a date and time and place have kind of been given, like the ball is rolling, to say metaphorically.
Yeah, I mean, if you are interested though, like it for any of the listeners that are kind of thinking about it or want to make a trip to Peru and try for the team, I'd encourage you to reach out to Howie and Matana if you're interested in some of the trial details and what some of the process will look like. Again, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure they'll have a post coming up like with a date set in place now. But for any of the listeners that are interested in trying out, by all means, reach out to Howie and Matana for that. Yeah, so that's the first talking point in terms of IQA. And then perhaps the biggest announcement I know for all three of us, and like I know I'm personally like jacked up talking about all this. So MLQ basically drops an info bomb. So they have the schedule that's being released for the 2022 season. So it'll be this summer. And we have lots to talk about from this article. So if you haven't had a chance to see the MLQ, I think they did a fantastic job. The article is titled MLQ 2022 Season Schedule Explainer. So there was they posted on their Instagram as well, like the actual schedule. So I'll just pull that up here. Yeah, so basically there was a ton of information that goes into the actual schedule, and then because of that they have a separate blog or article post kind of going through everything. So you haven't had a chance to see that. It's also on their website as well, the schedule, but it's posted on their Instagram with all like the logos and stuff. It looks super cool. But yeah, so I mean, I think the first starting place based on the fact that we're all like Canadian division is the announcement that there's going to be a all Canadian like regular season type of round robin not round robin, but like a exhibition, if you will, within the regular season between the Ottawa Black Bears and the Toronto Raiders. It's being called the Scavenger Showdown. So I'll quickly pull that up in the article and we'll quickly chat about it. So Scavenger Showdown. So starting in the 2022 season, we'll be hosting an annual match between our two Canadian franchises, the Ottawa Black Bears and the Toronto Raiders. Scavenger Showdown, aptly named for the team's mascots, will be a 3-game series held during the season, but it will not affect either team's divisional standings or MLQ championship seeding. So I believe this is going to be the first time that we actually see a cross-divisional matchup, correct, within the regular season?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, so super exciting for that as well. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And then, however, on all other ways, it'll be handled as an official MLQ series. And there'll be field space and staff for it as well. It'll be a way of introducing the series to increase the number of MLQ events held in Canada, which is, again, also very exciting. And then this comes on the back of past requests from both franchises for a Canadian rivalry matchup. We hope the match will continue to allow both teams to grow. So yeah, more Quidditch is always great. So that's a good point as well in terms of team growth. But yeah, boys, what do we think? Huge announcement from MLQ in terms of a all Canadian matchup within the season. What do you think?
I think the most important thing, beyond the fact that I think both teams since Toronto's inception have been kind of asking for this, I think it sets a great precedent. I think that's the most important thing here. Toronto gets to play Ottawa. There's always kind of been a East versus West thing in Ontario. It's in hockey. It's in CFL. It's just in the culture of what Ontario is. But I think it's super important because it sets up this thing of you have a bunch of players who kind of have to ride this line of am I playing for this team or am I playing for this team based off where I live. Most of the other Quidditch programs, you kind of have a pretty set field, they're not super bunched in on each other. But I think this shows hey, we don't get to play each other regularly. We know each other very well from regular season stuff and outside of MLQ, but this is an opportunity to grow the sport, grow your teams, grow the league as a whole. I think it sets a good precedent what they could do going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited. I think, like I said, the other really cool thing, and I think we're talking about it off air, but I think it's super exciting is the fact that we're talking about having sort of the cross divisional play. So I mean, I know it's in Canada and it's relatively closer, but you made a good point, Bryan, in terms of even just having teams that are in opposite divisions. So I can't remember what example you gave, but it was geographically made sense. But having a team that's in the East playing a team that's in the North, even if Rochester was doing a crossover, it wouldn't really be as nice if it was Rochester. But what example did you give again?
Well, so if this is North and East kind of playing against each other, and kind of a fun divisional game for excuse my language, shits and giggles, you can look at East and South, and I think the closest one would be the southmost East team and the eastmost South team, which is New Orleans and Charlotte. And I'm pulling it up now. If you Google Map this, it is probably only Charlotte Drive. I will Google that in a sec. But the other idea was Indianapolis and Kansas City. Someone pointed out in the Facebook comments regarding another thing that we'll talk about shortly. Kansas City and Indianapolis are closer to each other, and closer to Minneapolis apparently as well than Charlotte is all the way down to Austin. Than Kansas City is to Austin. So there are teams that are kind of in that in between the two divisions. So you got to find where they are relatively geographically close and open up opportunities. Call the KC in Indianapolis, the barbecue showdown or something. I don't know. I think there's opportunity there.
Yeah, it's the fact that MLQ is investing in their two Canadian franchises and showing they actually want to see the sport or the league more so grow in this region. Maybe that'll open up more opportunities for other Canadian teams down the road. But it's definitely a nice event to have just to showcase Canadian talent. Actually, a couple weeks before the MLQ championship, so You're gonna get some pretty solid Quidditch at that point because all the teams are pretty warmed up and everything.
So just for reference, Charlotte to New Orleans is a 10-hour drive, which is a heck of a lot. So my idea is maybe a little less realistic than I thought. But if you meet in the middle, and from what I'm aware, I know Charlotte is it's the Charlotte Aviators. I'm pretty sure a fair amount of Charlotte's players do come from Terminus Quidditch, which is an Atlanta-based team. So if you compare Atlanta to New Orleans, that's just over a 6-hour drive. So that becomes a little bit more palatable if you find somewhere in Alabama, maybe. But yeah, definitely opportunities there. I don't know what it is for Kansas City and Indianapolis though. Let's see. Old Google. Finding great content. Well, if I type in not Honda Indianapolis. Let me find it. I'll get back to you guys.
Yeah, but it's kind of to build up your point there. Like I think it's awesome that MLQ is really kind of stepping up and trying to promote the Canadian game. I think especially when it was just Ottawa and like Toronto was still kind of being put in the works in terms of developing a team. I won't lie, it did feel at times like Ottawa was just kind of like we were just part of MLQ to say that there was a Canadian team at times. Whereas I think now MLQs are kind of realizing the real growth of Quidditch in Canada, and is really trying to highlight that sort of aspect of the game. And I think again, you make a really good point about like having the timing of it, like right before MLQ Championship weekend, so it gives us a chance to actually kind of continually be playing Quidditch either. I have to look at the schedule again in terms of timing, but like roughly like every other weekend you have some sort of Quidditch. So yeah, great points there. That's promoting the Canadian game and also just giving us a chance to showcase Canadian talent, like just like a week prior to the MLQ Championship weekend. So good points.
So I found it real quick, and I don't remember my U.S. Geography as close as I do. So Kansas City to Indianapolis is only about a 7-hour drive, and St. Louis is smack dab in the middle of it, which is a great opportunity because that way you call it even. I didn't know that Kansas City was almost as far north as Indianapolis was. I do not know my American geography. I thought it was like a kind of like that 45-degree angle. It's almost like right on line. So yeah, it's I think it's a good opportunity there. So 2023 MLQ, where are you at?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think anyone was expecting any of this sort of some of these like I said, all these different events that are kind of happening within the season are just phenomenal. And I really don't think anyone's expecting that. Given given how low the bar was set in 2021, this is MLQ is really stepping up. So shout out again to MLQ for really trying to push the sport forward. But we're looking forward to that matchup against Toronto. Assuming we make the team, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but yeah, definitely looking forward to that. So that was kind of biased in terms of focusing on the Canadian matchup, but we have tons of other information that was dropped in this article here. I think the next biggest one we'll kind of touch on just because it'll affect you guys, Bryan, with Toronto is the Divisional Realignment. So for those that aren't aware, given the fact that the two Canadian teams are rejoining into the MLQ, because last year was exclusively the American teams, and within the round robin play and then the championship weekend, Charlotte was granted a position within MLQ, and that's being upheld, I guess, for this upcoming season. So they will be joining the East Division, which kind of impacts the divisional alignment. So I'll quickly pull up that article again here. So again, I highly recommend for those that haven't seen to read the article they posted on their website, because they did a really good job of explaining the reasoning behind it. Because I think there was a lot of people that were really upset just based on what I was seeing in the comments of the American Quidditch discussion group, especially some of the North teams. But they made their arguments pretty clear, and I think it's fair for overall. I mean, we'll hear what you guys have to say, but I think overall it's pretty fair, just given how difficult some of the decisions they have to make were. But anyway, so really quickly here, so the divisional realignment. Our current 16 teams include 5 teams that have played only in the South. So Austin, Kansas City, League City, New Orleans, and San Antonio. 5 teams that have only played in the East, that being Boston, Charlotte, New York, Ottawa, Washington, and then 5 teams that have only played in the North: Cleveland, Detroit, Indianapolis, Minneapolis, and Toronto. The Rochester White have played in both the North and East divisions. Most recently playing in the East, obviously. So first decision was deciding whether or not to move to four divisions of four, or two divisions of five and one division of six. So after attempting multiple combinations of four teams, we found it was difficult to come up with groupings that delivered the competitive balance we strive for in MLQ. And quite frankly, I thank God they didn't do that, because I think if we were in a division of four, we like Ottawa, we probably would have been up against it. But anyways, so after deciding to go with two divisions of five and one division of six, we decided whether we would put 6 teams in the East Division or the North Division. So again, Rochester have been playing in both, and developing histories and rivalries with opposition in both. Was the most straightforward flex between the two divisions, which again makes sense. And after plotting out the divisions geographically, that's a huge point, is that they're going geographically. It became clear that from a travel and logistics perspective, it made more sense to create a 6-team division in the North. Thus, Rochester will be returning to the North Division, which it won back in 2018. So that's a big first announcement, because that really impacts what the North Division is going to look like. Not just the fact that they have 6 teams, but because of the next point, which is what really is interesting, and what I think a lot of people were kind of not shocked by, but kind of like surprised by, because it wasn't something we really saw coming. But on again, for those who haven't seen, on July 23rd, aside from the East Next Gen series, which we'll briefly talk about, we have the North Division Championships. So given the fact that we have the 6 teams, the new North Division structure. So again, referring back to that article, given that it's the first ever 6-team division, the 2022 North Division requires a new divisional format. So they kind of explained here that it was unrealistic to have the round robin, because it would have to have 15 series over 9 weeks, which is crazy. And there's also another point here, which we'll get to. It's a little hidden nugget that I kind of discovered when I was going through it, about the Super Series. They kind of want to get away from that, which again, I do want to talk about, because it's an interesting point. Anyway, so essentially what's going to end up happening is they're going to have the 2 divisions. It's going to be 1 division, but they're going to have 2 separate conferences. My apologies. Yeah. So instead, we will be instituting a regular season split within the division, and a North Division Championship weekend, as I previously mentioned. So the first 6 weeks of the season, we'll have Minneapolis, Detroit, and Indianapolis playing in Conference A of North Division. And then Cleveland, Rochester, and Toronto playing in Conference B. So names of the conferences will be announced at a later date. So I guess they're going to name them, which is pretty cool as well. All this to say that there's going to be, within the championship weekend, each team will play the 3-game home series and the 3-game away series within their conference in the opening 6 weeks. This will give them the final standing within their conference. Then all 6 teams will travel to the North Division Championships, during which that weekend the North Divisional Champion will be crowned, and the Division's 4 bids will be handed out. So 4 teams qualifying for MLQ championship weekend, obviously. So the structure of the weekend is laid out as it is below. So for those that can't see it, on Saturday, there's going to be two sets of games. So the first game, so Series A, is going to be second place from Conference B and second place of Conference A. The winner will finish third, and the loser plays on Sunday. So third place meaning that they qualify for a championship weekend, obviously. And then Series B, this is the second game on the Saturday. You have the third place from Conference B playing third place in Conference A. The winner plays on Sunday, and the loser is eliminated. I don't like the word eliminated. Like it's not.
They are eliminated from the championship. They secure a bid.
Yeah.
That
was confusing. I think someone made a comment about that in the chat as well. They're not eliminated from, like you said, Ryan, they're not eliminated from the whatever. They're just eliminated from this like sort of like championship here, essentially. So then again, the Sunday we have the two more series. So loser of Series A plays winner of Series B. So winner of that one will finish 4th, and the loser is eliminated. So they will not qualify for championship weekend. Mm-hmm. And then Series D, first place from Conference B will play first place from Conference A. The winner will be the divisional champion. And again, the loser is not eliminated. The loser would finish 2nd, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So a lot of talking on my part. I want to get your thoughts on this, guys, especially you, Ryan, being from the North. And so like, what you guys think about that. But like, yeah, just lots of information there. Let's just go through it.
I want to hear your opinion first, Nate, as someone who's not in the division. So I want to hear it.
So I have a couple of questions first. So like for these games, they're all best 2 out of 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of them are series. Yes.
Okay. So like, for example, like if you're first. So I guess there's 2 conferences of like 3 teams, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So basically if you're first in your conference, you don't play until basically the last series of the tournament? sort of thing?
Yeah. I think like this is showing, from what I understand, like they're like 2 series are going on Saturday, 2 series going on Sunday. Two teams are getting one. Sorry, yeah, the second place teams, one of them just has to show up Saturday basically and be like, yeah,
Mhm.
we're good. The third place teams have like, okay, we got to win on Saturday and then win on Sunday. For the second
Yeah.
place teams, it's win on Saturday and you're good, or lose on Saturday and then win again. So you have to win. If you're in second place, you have to win it just one series basically, and then you're good. Um,
Gotcha.
First place, the luxury of first place is, hey, you
You're
don't have to do
locked up.
much.
Yeah.
You're good. Which I think
Just bragging
is
rights.
which I think is smart, right? Like you can
Mhm.
show up, you're in no rush, you have earned something, and you get to kind of watch your competition for championships and get a kind of scouting report in, which I think is a fair reward. It's not like crazy, but you earned it. Because if
Yeah,
you
like how
win
it's
two
oh, sorry.
series basically in like regular MLQ seasons, you've basically secured a spot. You just got to figure out how
Hmm.
far and up and down you are.
Like I like how they make that division in particular because they have the 6 teams. Like every game means a lot. Like right off the bat, like you want to be able to like finish top place in your conference, so then you really don't have to kind of work your way into a championship spot or to secure a championship bid for championships. Um, Also, like it brings a lot of eyes to that division. Of course, like it's the last weekend where like any team in the North Division plays a game or a series, so it definitely brings a lot of attention to that division. Kind of highlights some great overall Quidditch up north with those
Mhm.
divisions. So it's definitely an exciting event to have, like not necessarily like mid season or yeah mid season, but like a kind of like a mini championships, but it's just specific for the North Division. So it's pretty cool that they have that this year.
Yeah, I think like it's interesting because there's a person, I don't want to like name names or whatever, but
Mhm.
there's a person making a fuss a little bit about the like status of, hey, this is a little bit more difficult to make it into like MLQ championships if you're in the north, because you're 4 out of 6 like spots compared to 4 out of 5. And I see that, and I think it's valid. But at
Yeah.
the same time, there's a big point that this North Division championship and new 6-team North Division brings. You're reducing your travel time significantly.
Yeah.
Um, Being a player who hopefully will be playing for Toronto, uh, I remember like in 2020, before that got canceled early on, we were looking at, hey, what's our season going to look like? And I was like, okay, we have a Super Series coming to us in Toronto, and then we have to go to Cleveland and Detroit, I think it was, or Detroit came to us, but we had to go to Cleveland, something like that. But the two farthest teams had to come to us, and we're like, we're set. We got the best draw by far. Um, Now, like, sure, it kind of sucks for those teams, but we traveled to Indianapolis before. Um, I really want to visit Minneapolis. Do I want to have to travel there for Quidditch weekend? Probably
Mm.
not, unless maybe there's something else going on. Maybe championships one day, but it's you want to reduce that time as much as possible. It makes everything easier. You have more players able to show up. You have better like fan support, possibly. You have better like competition because people are better like and more rested. Um, but like looking at the Toronto schedule, we're playing against Cleveland and Rochester. Cleveland comes to Toronto June 4th in the first series of the weekend, our first week of the season, and we visit Rochester, I think, like 2 weeks later, June 18th. Between those two, we really only had to travel like 3 hours or 3.5 hours. I can't complain. And like it's almost a perfect little triangle for the three teams here on the eastern end of that conference. Like it's fantastic. The West End, it's a little bit more spread out. Minneapolis is very far, but Indianapolis and Detroit are fairly close, and Indianapolis and Minnesota are relatively close. So there's some crappier draws, but that's just kind of what it is. Maybe next time you get the best draws, like you travel the shortest distance and the farthest team comes to you.
Yeah.
It's luck of the draw. Gabe, I think you said something regarding the series. I assume they're not going to do 2 pitches. I assume they're going to do 1 pitch, and like you go A B A B A B, and then C D C D C D. That hasn't been announced. I would assume that makes the most sense because you save on field space.
Yeah.
You give players time to rest, and you give a better broadcasting experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, with that whole thing, like they also announced for the North Division Championship, the location is not yet announced. It's being finalized, but wherever it's being finalized, they have said, hey, this is going to be very central. And when I kind of plotted out the 6 teams on the map, I think Detroit probably has the toughest schedule, like regular season wise. If it is central among the 6 teams, it's going to be in like somewhere relatively close to Detroit. Like Detroit's going to have a very easy thing because you got to accommodate the East and you got to accommodate the West in that division. They're kind of stuck in the central of the North Division. And for them, they could be hosting for all we know at this point, right? So I think there's definitely like, hey, you get an advantage here, you get a disadvantage here. But I think all in all, MLQ is doing a great job to kind of equalize the whole opportunity of everything going on. But yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, I think so. Like 2 points. One, I think going back to what I said when I was reading the article, again, because I know you're talking about in that particular instance where I with the person who was making a fuss, I guess. But the MLQ made it pretty clear that I think geography was a big proponent in terms of the decision making that they were making. So just like for example for Ottawa for us this year, like Nate, this is gonna kind of, I don't know if you saw it yet or not, but so we have to travel to New Jersey and Washington. Now I think
to New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's New Jersey, isn't it? For I think because for the New York series, our first series, it's being held in New Jersey, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that weekend's in New Jersey. And then,
Jersey. There we go.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that. It's gonna be,
go visit Buddy Velastro at what's it called?
That's exactly what it'll be awesome. I'm kind of hoping we can do that. But anyways, yeah, New Jersey, and then the where's it here? The East Super Series July 16th is going to be in Washington. So we have to travel twice, and then our last potentially 3 times. But I mean, it's only going to be Toronto, but still for the Scavenger Showdown, and then
the last for that one.
Yeah, our last game against Boston is going to be a home series. But again, I think going back to what you said, Bryan, it's kind of like a luck of the draw thing where I think MLQ does a pretty good job of every other year. It's like less travel, I think. So like generally there's 1 year where one team gets a short end of the stick in terms of traveling distance. So like that one, I guess it would have been 2 years ago, three, I don't know, I can't remember. But the 1 year it was like we went to Boston and then we had two home series, I think.
We had like 2 super series where we're the home team for one of them. And then we went to Boston, I think with Washington as well in that one. So we did we only did 2 super series and then
your closest competitor. Like time wise.
Yeah. So it wasn't as bad. Whereas this year we're gonna have to travel twice. But and again, that relates back to like the whole super series idea that MLQ mentioned as a hidden gem. We'll get to that. But yeah, so again, going back to that, so geography. The only other argument that I was trying to think of if it could potentially have been a thing is like doing a seeding. But I think with 3 teams, it wouldn't really matter. So like for example, if let's just say a team, because honestly, if you finish third in your division, it's tough. Like to qualify for to be potentially able to qualify, it's I don't say it's impossible, but it's very difficult. So I can understand because I was trying to see it from their side, like the individual and the group's side, and that it's being more difficult. But in my opinion, I think just given the fact that like MLQ is still like relatively young, I think I'd much rather prefer distance over like potential of qualifying. I think I'd rather travel a little bit less than having to travel a little bit more to have a better chance of qualifying. I think.
I think a pain point as severe as like having to compete with distance. Like if you eliminate that as much as possible, you're improving competition for everyone, and that's the best you can do. You can't really ask like, hey, well, like what keeps one team competitive? Well, we'll do it here so that this better team is weaker or something, right? Like that's not what you want. So like, yeah.
It's all what makes, like, again, because of how young MLQ is, it's a huge barrier for a lot of teams. Like if you're having to travel like hours and hours away, it's definitely a huge barrier. So I would argue that geography makes more sense than necessarily like matchups. Because I would argue having things closer means you're gonna have a better team. Maybe not always, but generally speaking. Anyway, so yeah, back to the idea of the seeding. So like I was trying to think of a scenario where a team that finishes third place, I think given how, like the tiebreaker scenarios, it wouldn't really work. But if, let's say a team, so third place team in Conference A wins 3 games. So this goes back to like the parity we saw last year. So like seeing if there's a way to like kind of introduce more parity this year with like a crossover scenarios, like in the CFL, for example, how they have the crossover. Like if you finish better in the so I don't know if there's American listeners that watch, but like in the CFL, they have it's a smaller league, so like you could have a crossover. So a team from the West could qualify for the Eastern final kind of thing. So I'm trying to think of a scenario where like if you're third place in one division and you win 3 games, but you lose both. I guess you wouldn't be able to win all 3. No, that wouldn't work. See, if there was 4 teams in the conference, it might work, but if there's 3, it wouldn't work. Because I was thinking if you won 3 games, but you lost both series, which you wouldn't, because you'd have to win one of them if you won 3 games.
Well, right? I think a good comparison right now is if you want to compare to like a professional sports league, there's teams like the NFL. In the NFL, the Chargers were like 9-8 in their division, and they didn't make it. There's other teams that were like just on the edge. The Eagles were second place in their division and were 9-8, but like it kind of is what it is, right? Like there's only so much you can really do. One of the divisions had 3 teams with 10 wins, and their fourth place team had 7. Then another division had like 2 teams with like 4 wins each. Like
it happens in basketball a lot too. Like there's always the notion that the East is much weaker than the West, which in recent years it started getting a bit more even. But especially during the time like LeBron was dominating the East, like the argument was that they wouldn't think he would like make it to the finals that many years he did in a row, just because the West is so much tougher. But then of course he proved it once he joined the Lakers in his second year there.
Yeah, MLB is the same thing.
Yeah.
The National League West has like the Dodgers, the San Diego Padres, who are one of the best upcoming teams, and last season the San Francisco Giant, who were the best team in the league, and somehow they just all ended up happening to be in the same division. Most of the time, there's one really good team, and the rest of them suck, and that's been the trend for like 20 years. But sometimes that's what sports is. It's crazy. It's sports.
Like back to the MLQ like schedule, like one kind of final point, like with the North Division Championship, I think it's 3 weekends before MLQ Championships. It gives like an incentive to that division to have like 2 weeks of rest, besides the Raiders who have to play Ottawa the following weekend. But it gives it that extra rest, like as an incentive for kind of participating in that long championship weekend. So it's kind of like a benefit to being in that division. Like you get that extra rest while other teams are still finalizing their regular season and their seeding. So
like again, going back to the whole seeding thing, I think it wouldn't work in the scenario that I thought it would, but I don't know. I think we can go on about this for a while, but I generally think that the MLQ made the right decision in terms of the geography. You can get kind of nitpicky in terms of if you really look at the conferences, like the one conference, like was it Conference B, the conference that has India and Minneapolis in the same one, and then Detroit. I feel like Detroit probably feels like they have the short end of the stick, just given the fact that India and Mini are have been so dominant in that division. But I think overall that the MLQ has done the best that they can, given the cards have been dealt. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think overall, I think it's as fair as it really gets.
I think it's
definitely going to make it for interesting footage, so that's for sure.
It's been a while since this has happened, but when Toronto last was in there, we were almost on the same standing as Minneapolis. We're like the 3 games we played against them were all like 10-point difference, and they all went down to like final shot. They won 2 out of 3, but very well we could have taken one of those games, right? Another one of those games. So
Yeah.
who knows what happens year to year? Like Indianapolis
Yeah.
ruled the division for years, and then it changed.
Yeah.
So it's a wait and see. You gotta prep and you gotta prepare and play Quidditch.
Yeah. Yeah, no, even like you said, like the conference A, like the division that you guys are in, is going to be very interesting because, yeah, obviously you guys, then you have Rochester, who like last year was like I was really bullish on them last year, and they don't know, they kind of disappointed a little bit, but we have seen them be really powerful in previous years. So, and then obviously we have Cleveland. Cleveland did like phenomenally. Like the parity that they introduced to the league last year was fantastic. So lots of development from them. So, and yeah, like I said, every year is different, and I think as teams get more and more chance to mesh and gel and hopefully potentially bring back familiar faces, it's a development year to year. So well, it'll be super interesting, that's for sure, in terms of how that plays out. But yeah, so that's the North Division championships. And then really quickly, we also have that same weekend, I quickly mentioned it for those that hadn't seen this past MLQ championship weekend. They had like that next gen series, so the East is going to have their own form of that. I think it's given the fact that we have Boston, New York, I think Washington might have a team, but it's like basically like the practice squads get a chance to play, which I think is great for some of those teams that have a lot more depth getting a chance to play. So that'll be on the same weekend as the North Championship weekend, which is exciting. And then
I just want to say, I think it's very indicative of like in regular season they have the Massachusetts Quidditch Conference, and that's kind of like the schools up there, and they have their own thing kind of going. And it's very deep. It's very full of players. So if you only have like a couple players coming from the North, couple players coming from the South, I think there is a fair amount of young South players. But if you have a bunch of them from the East, like give them that opportunity. I think it's great. More events like this are always good.
For sure. And I think on that point too, like I don't want to spend too much time on the North, but like I think given like I think that series is going to be really huge for like the potential expansion within the league, because I think it makes sense to add another team in the East just based on that point alone. Like we see so much talent from Boston and the New York area, Washington. Like I think we should definitely see another team put there. I don't know if it'll be next year or previous years to come, but I think it's honestly a shame that we don't have some of these practice squad players on their own team. So I think it makes sense for sure to have another team in the East, which will kind of address the issue of having a 6-team division. And then I'm sure there's enough talent in the South to have another team down there. So when that'll happen, if it'll happen, we'll see. But I think there's no reason why we can't expand to having six teams in both divisions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the East Division next gen series. And then two other talking points I wanted to quickly cover. We actually did kind of touch a little bit on Rochester. So Rochester, again, moving into the North, given the divisional alignments. Any quick thoughts on that, guys? Seeing Rochester in the North?
I was bullish on them last year, and they kind of had a down year. I not hate to say I told you so, but a little bit. But once again, that was last year. Cleveland took a big jump. Yeah. Maybe Rochester does the same. Who knows who comes out of Toronto? Like, right? Like it's to start evaluating teams on who's going to be who. Like there was a lot of transfers that we didn't see, like, or didn't expect to happen, and they happened, right? So I think it's going to be very competitive Quidditch. The U.S. teams have played Quidditch recently. Toronto hasn't. So
yeah,
I think it's anyone's game.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, and the last quick talking point I wanted to go over with you guys was the sort of the hidden gem I mentioned earlier with MLQ. So in that first paragraph in that article, the divisional realignment, or sorry, was it that one? No, sorry, not that one. The new North division structure. In that first paragraph, it makes note that MLQ's long-term goal is to move away from the Super Series. So given the fact we just talked about geography and sort of limiting the distance of travel, wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what do you guys think about the Super Series? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you think MLQ is trying to get at with sort of the long-term goals of not having a Super Series potentially? What do you think?
Like starting off with like the benefits of Super Series, like it saves the league costs because you're not renting that many pitches. Like you have 3 teams compete on the same pitch over a course of a weekend. Like Bryan mentioned, like it's easier to like set up like one like broadcasting unit, like for one pitch, instead of having, I guess, additional volunteers to ref, commentate, etc., at different locations. If we're gonna like do like separate series throughout the whole season. So like I see like a lot of the pros of Super Series, and which is why I actually do enjoy Super Series, because you get like a lot of games in as a player over the course of a weekend. So like if you're traveling down to the States from Ottawa, like it makes it worthwhile going down to the States to play against two teams instead of just one.
Yeah.
So I do like the Super Series. I'm kind of interested to know like why they want to reduce that, because I guess if you remove Super Series, then you'd have to like either have more series going on each weekend, or just extend the season either longer into the summer or start it earlier into the spring. So I'm kind of interested to see like what their plans are going forward with that.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, yeah, the Super Series have been super beneficial. Like, it for the players, it's great. It's a nice long day of watching Quidditch. It cuts down on costs for the most part, as far as we're aware. I think the goal in getting rid of Super Series, um, I guess you can almost call it like a crutch. Like, if you're having to
Yeah.
do Super Series, you're having to pull teams from farther away to have like less travel costs and whatnot. So maybe that's indicative of expansion, like you mentioned, Gabe. Like, if you have more teams and you have shorter distances to travel, maybe you don't need to have to travel, because realistically you only have to go here and here, and then you have divisional championships, which can kind of be a makeshift Super Series in some way. Like, it's a lot of teams competing at one place, with less games. But I think at that time you can also have people like doing something more social, or you can have like group dinners or something together to kind of build that camaraderie throughout the team. So I think to me, a Super Series as a crutch is maybe what they're hinting at there. Like,
Yeah.
they don't want to have to rely to it. Not that it's a bad thing. Like, it's worked well and it's done the league well, but maybe it's time to kind of move forward and on to better things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I agree. I think that it is definitely a crutch, and that it addresses the whole travel distance issue. I agree with Nate though. I think that I do like the Super Series, just given the fact that from a cost perspective and like just time and travel, it makes a lot of sense to, especially for us Canadian teams, when we're going down to the States, to play two teams instead of one, just to address more, like the volume of games we have to play. And as we get more teams, yeah, maybe because things are closer, it'll mean less travel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the big thing is just the cost, and I think looking at it from a league perspective, I think the league is potentially worried that, and to be fair, it does impact it does impact team strategy. I would say, like I look back to when Nate, when we were playing in that Super Series to clinch for championships, like the way that we approached the game against New York was drastically different, given the fact that we knew that we had to beat Washington to qualify. Like, we knew that was our game. So in that game before against New York, I'm not saying I'm not saying by any means that we we didn't try, because of course we were trying, but it did impact our strategy because we I could go on a whole tangent about how I think we definitely got the short end of the stick that weekend in terms of the scheduling of everything. I think that's just how it ended up playing out, just because the Washington series was close, but there was a lot of variables against us that weekend.
Hey,
however,
I totally get what you mean. Like, that's valid. Like, I've only played in one Super Series. The Super Series we played against were against the two best teams in our division, and we had multiple players like deal with heat stroke. Like, yeah. Would we have lost by 10 points if we didn't like go full tilt against Indianapolis? Like, maybe not. Maybe I wouldn't have held with like a messed up thumb, or another player did, like Atana would have had an extra calf to work with. Like, yeah. It does. It's a legitimate thing. Like, there's not, people talk in the NHL all the time about like back-to-backs, and it's kind of this whole thing. During the COVID year, they did the whole 3-game series, and honestly, I thought it was super effective. Mm-hmm. They didn't do it this year. Players are kind of a little upset about it, but it is what it is. I don't know. It's definitely like a usable thing. I think it's just, if you want to progress, you gotta get rid of those little old tricks and trades that you've used in the past.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, yeah, like it's at this point, it's a crutch. I mean, in an ideal world, when we have more money, hopefully we get the settlement money from the NFL, and but in general, when there's more money in the league and like cost becomes less of an issue, I think, yeah, like it does make sense to move away from the Super Series for now. Though I think it does make sense, but it doesn't mean that teams are not going to necessarily take advantage of certain situations, i.e., us, in that particular instance. But yeah, so we'll see kind of how MLQ approaches that in the years to come, with expansion and how they approach the Super Series. So yeah, awesome. Any other points that you guys want to cover with an MLQ before we do the Willa Took?
No, I'm pretty good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Like I said, there's lots to unpack there. Lots of little hidden gems. So if there's anything we missed, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. Let us know how excited you are, because like I said, I'm super excited for the season. Again, fingers crossed we actually get to have a season, but just hearing the announcement was super, super exciting and something positive to look forward to. So let us know what you think. And yeah, so we'll quickly wrap up, I guess, with our Who Will the Took segment. Trying to think who would like to give the toot. I want to say, like, I might give a little bit of a cop-out answer here and just say MLQ in general again. Because yeah, just given our current situation with Omicron and everything like that, it's been super bleak. So giving us something to really get excited about with the MLQ sort of Scavenger Showdown and like just everything. It was honestly such an exciting announcement. So yeah, I would just shout out to everyone behind the scenes with MLQ, just phenomenal. Because I can only imagine the sort of detail and effort that went into sort of planning the schedule and making everything work. So just, yeah, I would give them my toot just for providing us with like super exciting announcement, something to look forward to for the summer. So
yeah, I'll piggyback off MLQ and say MLQ as well.
Yeah,
like the main thing is, like, I don't think they ever really released schedules for the season this early into the year, in like the calendar year. Like it's only January, and right now, like basically the whole season set up. Usually I think it's like more towards April-ish where you kind of have that season schedule set. So it just shows like all the hard work they've been putting in probably for, like, over the past year, or at least since the last championship, kind of getting everything ready to go. With the idea that, you know, the pandemic will allow, with that going on, like we'll still be able to have like a season with both Canadian teams involved, and it's showing like how much they want to, like I said before, like grow the sport in Canada and kind of involve us even more this season, just because we weren't able to really participate last season. So it just shows like how much they are investing in the league and everything like that.
Yeah. Mine's more off base and based off the day of our recording. My toot goes to Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. They have just broken a 30-year drought. I'm not even a huge Bengals fan. I like Joe Burrow, but they just beat the Oakland Raiders, who is the team who refused to kneel from last episode. But yeah, shout out to Bengals. 30 years. Cincinnati, go party tonight. Don't catch COVID.
Awesome. So with that, we'll wrap up the podcast. So yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts on sort of the MLQ's announcements with the season, and then IQA as well, with the Pan American Games coming up this summer. Yeah, great recording, and definitely looking forward to hearing your thoughts. In terms of our social media, follow us on our Instagram. So Nate has us there. It's No Beaters podcast. So stay up to date with our sort of posts, and as we drop episodes, we'll let you know there. And yeah, we'll be back next week with another episode. And yeah, looking forward to hear what you have to say about the season drop, and we'll catch you guys everyone next week.